It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Our special weekly panel edition of the Rick Smith Show. Lots on the horizon. This week was really kind of crazy. We saw a lot of stuff about Joe Manchin, our former president being, well, as presidential as ever, and also lots of worker activism going on as more than 100,000 people are either on strike, marching a picket line, or getting ready to do just that. So lots and lots to get to. Before we get started into all of that, I got to introduce our all-star panel. Our good friend Rich Ojeda from No Dems Left Behind. Also, Sarah Burris, reporter over at RawStory, and Laura Packard, cancer survivor and executive director of the Healthcare Voter Group. Guys, thanks so much for taking time for us.
Airborne.
You bet.
So let's start with Joe Manchin. Joe freaking Manchin. Here's the thing. I got it when it was about, we can't possibly afford the price tag. I got it there. I got it when, it's so much money. We can't possibly do it because it's too much money. It seems like the message is now changed from it's about the money to it's about ideology. It's about saving coal, and it's about protecting the nation, well, from those lazy slackers who just don't want to work. Rich, I want to start with you. From being from West Virginia, is this classic Joe Manchin rhetoric? Is this what you expect from Joe?
Well, first off, anytime we talk about we can't afford it, look at our military budget. We can afford anything. We could do a lot for our people. That's a fact. Joe Manchin is protecting Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin's trying to act like he's trying to take care of the 11,400 coal miners in West Virginia. But at the end of the day, this is Joe Manchin protecting the dividends that he gets every single year to the tune of about $1.1 million from his son's energy companies that he has. That's what this is about. Joe is about the money, and Joe's about the power. So, I don't know. I don't think that he's going to actually switch, because if he does, then what does that mean for the Democratic Party in West Virginia? Because the Democratic Party in West Virginia, most of the people that are in that work in the Democratic Party are kin to Joe Manchin. The Democratic Party has only had one mission in its entire existence, and that is to make sure Joe Manchin always wins. So, Joe Manchin can go down this path. But I will tell you that he's walking a fine line with his legacy. And if he wants his legacy to be that of a traitor and somebody who absolutely sold his people out, that desperately need things, understand that we're 50th out of 50 in terms of infrastructure. We don't have broadband in the majority of in this state, especially southern West Virginia. Kids are not even getting homework anymore because the teachers don't want them to go home and realize they have no connectivity. Most kids in West Virginia, to do their homework, have to sit in the McDonald's parking lot in order to get Wi-Fi to do their homework. And that's West Virginia, and we can do so much. And we have a person in Washington, D.C. that is supposed to be the leader of the Democratic Party, and he is absolutely showing his true colors that he's about money. He's about what benefits him. Joe is about Joe.
No, I don't disagree with that.
The last part of that, I was going to talk about the 11,000, nearly 12,000, 1% of the population that works in coal mining, and there's a real opportunity to change the face of West Virginia, to completely change the economy, to change the way that people are going to get free training and stuff. All of these people who've lost their jobs over the years could get free community college, get all kinds of free training, and finally have jobs that are for a new era. And it's the kind of jobs that will go on well past Joe Manchin's life. And regardless of legacy here, he could save the state. He really has the power at one individual to save an entire state, and he doesn't care.
No, and that's the thing. You brought up legacy, and that's the important part of this, Laura. When you're looking at a legacy that he doesn't seem to care about, because I look at Robert Byrd. I have friends who live in West Virginia, and you've got the CIA senator there, the Department of Transportation stuff. He brought home the bacon. He understood what bringing stuff home to make people's lives better. Manchin doesn't seem to be getting this. And again, I go back to what Rich said. It seems like he's just trying to line his own pockets, and I hate believing that. I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, as Sarah and Richard said, West Virginia is one of the poorest states in the country. This is Joe Manchin's opportunity to be a hero, to do concrete things to help thousands of West Virginians. And so he faces a choice. Does he help out his rich donors, or does he help out the people of West Virginia? Yeah. And he was elected to help the people of West Virginia. So now he needs to do it.
Do you buy his slippery slope argument, this idea that we're just creating more entitlements and more of a welfare state? Does anybody buy that as his defense?
Absolute garbage. First and foremost, there's nothing in West Virginia that's an entitlement. We're asking for 2 years of community college because the majority of people around here, college is something that it's not in the works. If you are poor and you can't afford to go to college, then you have dig coal or sell dope or join the military. That's what West Virginia offers you. And giving people the ability to get 2 years worth of community college could elevate them out of poverty. It's done all over the world. It's amazing what we will not get. It's amazing what we will not get from our government, and we absolutely desperately need it. I can show you places in West Virginia where instead of the 2-lane road on the side of the mountain, one of those lanes has fallen off the side of the mountain, and buses still travel that every single day. We need this desperately, and Joe Manchin is the one that's going to stop us from being able to get these capabilities.
No, and to that point, the fact, and correct me if I'm wrong, but West Virginia is a state that already has a very high population of people who are getting welfare and government assistance. To me, it seems like it's a welfare state already. Joe Manchin, by supporting this Build Back Better plan, could actually bring resources in to change that. Or am I missing some point here? Let me start with you, Laura. Am I missing something here?
It sounds like excuses to me because, as you pointed out, West Virginia already is receiving more money than it puts in. West Virginia is already benefiting from the largesse of other states, and this bill would help West Virginia even more. So is Joe Manchin concerned about New York taxpayers? Does he want to save New York some money and give West Virginians a bum deal?
Yeah, it's crazy. But, Sarah, here's the thing. This week we saw the story come out that Manchin met with Bernie Sanders. Heated discussion behind closed door where quoted reportedly Manchin said, well, how about zero? Which means that he wants you to believe he's going to tank the whole thing, and we end up getting nothing done.
If that's the way Joe Manchin wants to do this, then I'm pretty sure he's going to end up being the villain of the entire United States, because we're not just talking about West Virginia. We're talking about the 50 United States and all of the territories being able to have, not just paid family leave and child care, but education and roads and bridges. And so this is all sort of connected to this this bill that Joe Manchin has just decided that he's going to be like, all right, I'm going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's not the way government works. And I mean, if Joe Manchin wants to go that route, then I concede Bernie Sanders being like, you know what, I'm going to go out to West Virginia and do a little rally and talk to the people that are there and explain to them what Joe Manchin said in that meeting, and explain that he's abandoning them, and hell, let's put some signs out that say "Help me, Joe" or something like that all over the state. I don't know, just something that could help this guy get it in his stupid head that this is serious. And yes, it's important for West Virginia, but it's the entire country too.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been in that room. I know Bernie Sanders. I've interviewed him a number of times on this program, and I would love to see him worked up. I would love to have seen that. I would love to have been a fly on that wall. Wouldn't you have, Laura?
Mm-hmm. And I think that we need to keep pushing. I mean, right now it's all talk with Manchin and Sinema and everybody. The voting hasn't happened yet, so right now is the talking. But when it comes to the voting, they need to do the right thing and vote for what the American people want and need, and that is Build Back Better.
Yeah. Now this week you had President Biden in Scranton, Pennsylvania, going back home to the Trolley Museum there, and giving his spiel of what I've been calling the Build Back, I guess, a little bit better, because we've come off the 3.5. We started off at $6 trillion. They compromised down to $3.5 trillion. Now we're somewhere in the maybe $2 trillion. Do you see it? Do you see it coming down any further? Let's start with you, Rich.
I hope not. But I think right now it's more leaning like 1.75. We need these. And once again, going back to the Manchin piece, West Virginia is desperate for these capabilities. So he can either do the right thing and be a hero, and I hope that he does, or he can do the wrong thing and he can spend the rest of his life living and loving his money, but he can't walk out his front door because everybody's going to be screaming, that he's an absolute sack of what. So if that's what he wants, if that's what he wants his legacy to be, by all means, go for it. Because at the end of the day, I'm done with him. I'm done with him.
Yeah, but I look at this, and again, they pulled the free college option out, which I think absolutely has to be in there. The community college part. What I've been saying for the longest time is, there was a time in our country's history where an 8th grade education was enough. And at some point they said, no, we need to get an additional 4 years. We need to get high school. We need to get that in. I'm saying now we need to get community college in, or a vocational program. Learn how to be a welder or a pipe fitter or an electrician or anything, but that additional 2 years of education, I think in this moment is something we need desperately.
You're spot on. But here's another thing, too, that people aren't thinking about, and I hope they start. Joe Biden has elevated 40% of children out of poverty in this country with that $250 to $300 check every month that goes to these parents. Oh, by the way, Kentucky and West Virginia are getting a lot of that. And now what they've decided is we want it stopped at 1 year. So basically at the end of the year, we're going to let everybody go back to poverty the way that they were. Our government should be out there working to do everything in their power to elevate children out of poverty. And that's the path that they're going to go. And that's what they're fighting. That's what they want to get rid of. That's why it's important for us to let people know, would you like to go to college? Would you like to? Because guess what? You're not going to get to now because of these Republicans. And if Joe Manchin jumps on board with them, because of him too.
Yeah, Sarah,
the
your
idea
thoughts?
that this law can pass at 1.7 is never going to happen. The Progressive Caucus in the House has basically said we're not going lower than 2.2. I think it was Giant Hall who was just like, yeah, no, that's not acceptable. She didn't say what number, but I think if given the fact that Democrats have come down from 6 million to 3.5, if Manchin says 1.7, I think Democrats should say, okay, how about 3.45, and just incrementally go down from there, because this is just complete BS at this point.
Yeah,
and they're all facing choices. All these elected officials face a choice right now. Do you care more about the children of hardworking Americans that you represent, or do you care more about the children of hedge fund billionaires and preserving their tax breaks?
Yeah, they don't care about anybody's children. They care about the next political cycle. And I look at someone like Manchin, who, as Rich pointed out, is completely safe no matter what he does. Even if he were to switch parties, I still think he's completely safe. So let's go there. Do you think the threat of he's got an exit plan, he's going to leave the Democratic Party, do you think that's a real threat? Let's start with you, Laura.
I would defer to our West Virginian for more West Virginian insight, but it seems like he's all over the place. That there's the story that came out in Mother Jones, and the reporters are standing by that story. And then Manchin himself came out and said, no, he never threatened to walk away from the Democratic Party. It sounds like there's something there. I don't know if the truth may lie somewhere in between the two, but it sounds like he's at least made some comments or threats that could be taken that way.
Now, Sarah, I mean, you're obviously in D.C., you're in touch with stuff. You got to know Mitch McConnell is behind this. I mean, at least my view is Mitch McConnell is whining and dining and promising whatever he can get. This is where all this is coming from. The evil mastermind on the right, I think, is behind all of this.
I don't think that even Mitch McConnell needs to be. I think it's very, very clear that lobbyists and big money are already buying Joe Manchin and Sinema too. And so I don't know that McConnell even has to come, meet with Manchin and be like, oh, I don't know, Joe might have to. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk like a turtle, but sort of what Mitch McConnell sounds like in my head. But I don't know if McConnell's making some side deal with him. I think it'd be interesting to have some famous Republican come out and say, when if Manchin switched parties, have some Republican come out and say, what, I'm switching parties to a Democrat and I'm going to run against him.
Yeah, there are none of those left.
Yeah, because at the very least, you have Manchin is not a friend of Donald Trump, and so it's not like even as a Democrat, or if he changed parties to a Republican, it's not like Trump's going to show up and be like, oh, vote for Joe Manchin. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, good point.
No, you got to understand, Joe Manchin polls everything. Joe Manchin will do a poll on whether to drink Coke or Pepsi, and if 51% says Pepsi, he's going to have a Pepsi can. He's polling everything. Joe Manchin is planning on coming to West Virginia and running for governor in 2024, and he has watched our state go from being a Democratic state to now being a Republican-led state, to now being a state that supports Donald Trump. Even most of the Democrats do. And I'm telling you right now, that is what he's doing. Joe Manchin is a politician, and he's going to play them games.
But isn't this one of those moments where you go, if you were to bring home the bacon and you were to make people's lives better and they were able to see that you would go, hey, thank you, Joe. And the entire country would be like, thank you, Joe. It just seems there's something more here than just what's on the surface, clearly.
These people have been brought up to believe that anything that is given, except what they normally get, like welfare and things like that, it's socialism and it's wrong, and they'll fight it tooth and nail.
No, it's scary. But ultimately, the person that we didn't talk about hardly at all is the other wild card in this, and that's Kyrsten Sinema. And, she could blow this up down the road, even if Manchin does come along. So there's a long way before we get any of this stuff done. Guys, I got to take a quick break right here. Appreciate the thoughts. On the other side, going to talk a little bit about Striketober. Lots of people out in the streets. Lots of people ready to, fight for those better wages, hours, and conditions that we've always talking about. Going to take a quick break. Right back with our all-star panel of Rich Ojeda from No Duns Left Behind, Sarah Burris from RawStory, and Laura Packard from the Education Voter Group. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people.
There's nothing more American than workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win. On The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1912. That was the day mill workers began to walk off the job at the Phoenix and Gilbert knitting mills in Little Falls, New York. The strike was sandwiched between the Bread and Roses strike in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and the 1913 Patterson textile strike. American, Hungarian, Polish, and Italian workers, over 70% of them women, struck against wage reductions. Their hours had just been cut from 60 hours a week to 54, and their wages adjusted accordingly. A recent Factory Inspection Commission investigation revealed deplorable working and living conditions, among the worst in the state. As a result, state legislators passed protective legislation restricting women's work hours. Many social reformers pushed for laws like these in the hopes of improving women's quality of life by minimizing their exploitation on the job. But the reduction in hours spelled disaster for these mill women, who then faced a loss of income that ranged between 75 cents and $2 a week. Socialists in nearby Schenectady, including the socialist mayor George Lunn, arrived in town and were promptly arrested for giving open-air speeches in support of the strikers. IWW organizers soon followed to help organize picketing, daily strike parades, and strike committees for each of the factories. They quickly established IWW Local 801, the National Industrial Union of Textile Workers. By the end of the month, mounted police closed in on the women strikers and began clubbing them, many into unconsciousness. The police raided strike headquarters and arrested IWW strike committee leaders. But the women strikers stood strong and were celebrating victory by the end of the year. They won full reinstatement and 60 hours pay for 54 hours work.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, October has been renamed to Striketober. As look, you're seeing a lot of union activity, a lot of union workers out on the picket line. And as I've said, it's about damn time. It's about time we see this wave of people saying, I'm not going to take it anymore, not going to work in horrible conditions, not going to work for poverty wages, want better health care, want better retirement security. And moreover, one of the things the main themes going across all of these strikes, I want more family time. I don't want to work 12, 14, 16, 18-hour days, 6, 7 days a week. I want a better life-work balance. That being right at the top of it. Like I said, there's more than 100,000 people who are either on a picket line today or getting ready to get on a picket line. And understand, organized labor in this country is only about 6% of the workforce. That means that small percentage is sending a lot of people out on the picket line. So what are the people who don't have union protections doing? They're just leaving, or they're leaving the workplace entirely. And here to share some thoughts on what Striketober has brought us thus far, I've got our all-star panel of Rich Ojeda from No Dems Left Behind, Sarah Burris from RawStory, and of course Laura Packard from Education Vote, healthcarevoter.com, where she's the executive. I'm going to get it, the executive director. Guys, thanks for sticking around for me. So let's start with you, Sarah. You're the person who I know has a huge labor background. Thoughts on Striketober?
Yes, I'm so excited. First of all, this is the best possible time for this to happen because companies are desperate for voters. I mean, not for voters, for workers. Everybody's coming back from the lockdowns and everything, and a lot of folks who had low-paying, crappy jobs are now able to get hired for, decent wages and for better paying jobs, better benefits, all of the above. And so, these companies that are so desperate to find people, they have a choice, either, basically lose their workforce or pay just a tiny bit more, or maybe make people wear masks, or, all of the things that would protect people in their workplace. And so it's exciting. There were two stories this week that I got excited about as well. There was a story about a guy who heard a bunch of companies complaining about how they can't get people to apply for their jobs. And so he applied for 60 of those companies and only one called him for an interview. So basically that sort of calls all of these companies onto the carpet about, people just don't want to work. And it's a complete lie. And the other story is there are all of these people who are brilliant coders and bartenders and like people who have real skill that are necessary. And so a friend of mine tweeted out a couple of text message exchanges from people who just quit their jobs because they were like, yeah, no, I'm not going to get treated like this. I can go down the street and work for, better wages and better treatment, for somebody else. And so I just feel like we have reached this era of empowerment. Yep. For people in the workforce, and it's so exciting. I get super excited about it.
No, and I'm right there with you, because for me, I'm looking at the number of strikes, and like as I pointed out, only about 6% of the private sector workforce are in labor unions. So to see this many people saying, no, we're going to fight for better contracts, we demand better wages, hours, conditions, better family time, health care, retirement security, all of those things which have been eviscerated over the last 45 years. That's great. But also what they're calling the great resignation, and they're trying to make it sound like people are lazy, when I make the argument is those other people don't have the union protections that 6% has. So their only opportunity is to say, screw you, I'm leaving. They don't have the protection to go on strike, so they're leaving. So that's the message. Not that people are lazy or stupid or nobody wants to work. It's they don't want to work for the poverty, desperation wages, and the crummy conditions. Or at least that's my thought. What's yours, Laura?
Absolutely. We call workers essential, but we don't pay them essential wages and we don't treat them like they are essential. We haven't raised the minimum wage since the 90s, and wages in general have been flat for decades. You see in the 70s where the money starts accumulating at the top and the people who work for a living are just treading water. Two-income families just trying to stay afloat. So for a long, long time, things have been out of whack. And now finally, workers have some leverage. This pandemic has shown people that life is full of choices. And if you are working a shitty job, you don't have to make that choice. You can do better.
Yeah, the reality is they haven't, in the tip sector, they haven't raised the minimum wage since the 90s. Last time the federal government raised it was 2009, and that was, wasn't even enough then. Most certainly something we need to do again. Only 2 presidents since the minimum wage have been in place that didn't raise the minimum wage. Ronald Reagan, of course, and thanks to the Republicans, it didn't get done under the Obama term either. So for me, long overdue. But Rich, your thoughts on the activism we're seeing?
Well, first off, if you work and you're not a member of a union, you need to be one. And if your job doesn't have a union, then you need to get together and unionize. I think about the John Deere strike. What they basically showed is that they made record profits. And what they did was they raised the guy that was the main guy, they raised his salary 160%. The guy's making crazy money. But they looked at the workers and they said, hey, here's the deal. In 5 years, you'll make $1.85 more. So you start now at $10 an hour, and in 5 years, you're going to be making $11.84. Not when the company's making that kind of profit. That right there shows you they're absolutely greedy, and the worker needs to stop allowing themselves to be mistreated, because at the end of the day, the most important thing in any organization is the worker, because without the worker, they get nothing. And until we show them that we'll let you starve before we let you starve us, that's how you get it. That's the power, and that's the power the people need.
No, absolutely. And that strike, what I just found out here recently is the reason we need major comprehensive labor law reform is what's going on with this John Deere strike, because they've filed an injunction against the workers. They can only have a handful of people on the picket line. So there goes your First Amendment right of free speech and the right to assemble. And only does that get to happen in labor strife. And look, the pendulum has swung way too far to the extreme on the corporate side. And again, this is why we need that major comprehensive labor law reform.
But let me jump in here also and say, though, that, these union bosses, the union bosses need to be focused on taking care of the union members. I'm telling you right now, as a person that was a state senator, union bosses will go behind the scenes and will work out their own sweet deals with some of these Republicans and people like that are anti-union. And that's a fact. Unions need to make sure that the union bosses have their best interests when they go represent them.
And we also need to make sure that elected officials stand up for unions. I worked for the AFL-CIO in 2009, trying to get the Employee Free Choice Act passed. And a particular senator or two, such as former Senator Blanche Lincoln, refused to help working people in Arkansas and in other states. And so now we have an opportunity again to pass labor law reform, to pass the PRO Act, but pay attention to how people vote and hold them to account if they do not vote for working people.
No, absolutely. And look, we do need those elected officials. I mean, you go back and you think of some of the great quotes of leaders of the past. Abraham Lincoln, said labor is prior to and independent of capital. Capital is only the fruit of labor and could have never existed if labor had not first existed. Labor is the superior of capital and deserves a much higher consideration. And yet, that has not been the last 45 years. We've got all of the give corporations what they want, give the wealthy what they want, and even in the Build Back Somewhat Better plan, we can't tax corporate America. We can't tax the wealthy to pay for the things that we all agree need to have done. Sarah, I mean, at some point, you're going to reach this point where people have had enough. And I'm hoping this is that moment. I'm hoping it just isn't October. I'm hoping we come up with a cute name for November and another for December and January and February and all through next year, to where maybe we claw back some of the wealth that's been stolen from us over the last 45 years.
Not going to take it November. I think the best thing we could do is have a national strike on Black Friday. And that would certainly send a message to corporate America and to Washington, because all of these guys really, really need Black Friday this year. Even though we've got a huge, issue with getting all of our goods in from all over the place, I think this is a really good opportunity too, where we can kind of put our money where our beliefs are and start investing in, or start buying products from companies that are good to their workers. We can, support people who, there's a whole website that's dedicated to things that you can buy that are union made and that are made in the USA, and ways that you can support working people instead of, sweatshops in China. And that would be a great way to do it.
No, we desperately need that kind of militancy. And this, again, something I've been talking about for years on this program, the need for, a realization that, going back to the old Knights of Labor saying, a concern of one is a concern of all. This idea of an injury to one being an injury to all, and that we're all really in this together. Whether you're a consumer, a worker, or someone in an industry, we should be supporting each other. And I'm hoping we're in a moment, Rich, where maybe that kind of working class solidarity returns, not just to our language, but to our behavior. The John Deere strike that you brought up, they're limiting the number of people, the workers who can be on that picket line. Every person in that community should be going to that picket line. Thousands of people, not associated with the company, because now you're not violating the injunction, but the community should be stepping in.
Absolutely. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do if we show up out there? Guess what? During the teacher strike in West Virginia in 2018, do you know what was not allowed? Teachers striking.
Right.
But guess what happened? 28,000 of them said, screw you, we're tired of this garbage. And they showed up at the Capitol. And in the end, after 5 days, they won. That's what you do. You don't let these people try to tell you that you can't do something, because what they're basically saying is you can't do this, but we're going to let them do this to you anytime they want, and there's nothing you can do about it. People need to stand together, and that's what needs to happen. And I'll tell you another thing too. Unions need to support other unions. What won the teacher strike in West Virginia wasn't the 28,000 teachers. What won the teacher strike in West Virginia was when you walked outside the capital of West Virginia, not only did you see a sea of red and blue teachers t-shirts, but you saw the United Mine Workers of America. You saw the Teamsters. You saw the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, carpenters, pipe fitters, boilermakers. They were all there. And let me tell you something, that scared them legislators, because they knew if we don't do right by these teachers, we're not going to get none of the votes from all these other unions too. And that's exactly what you got to do. Send that message. I don't care. And I don't care about, you're not going to tell me what we can't do. I'm the guy that was told that I wasn't allowed to throw a brick through a window on a daggone picket line one time. But as far as I'm concerned, if you come to my backyard to take our jobs, you should get your ass whipped in the process.
I love your passion, and we need more people like Rich, most certainly. But Laura, you're the person who I defer to on a lot of healthcare issues. As the executive director of Healthcare Voter, we're seeing strikes in healthcare like we haven't seen in my lifetime. We're seeing, nurses on strike in Massachusetts, in Buffalo, New York. The workers, the nurses out in California, Kaiser Permanente, are about ready to go on strike. We're seeing during a pandemic, we're seeing healthcare workers go, whoa. We're tired of working these extreme hours. We're tired of the poverty wages. We're tired.
Mm-hmm. Right, because medical personnel, especially nurses, but everybody on down the line too, med techs, have been so overworked and underpaid for so long. And then this pandemic just compounded that, with people having to work double shifts, risking their life literally every time they entered their workplace. And there's all this trauma that's accumulated, and maybe people got a few pats on the back, and last year we called them heroes, and this year people refuse to wear a mask and they spit at nurses. So there's been all this trauma, and people have had enough. We need vastly more medical workers in this country, and we need to pay them fairly. our healthcare system is broken in so many ways, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Sarah, as we've seen, we're talking about, you got John Deere workers, you got healthcare workers, you've got, food workers. I mean, you look at Kellogg's, Frito-Lay, Nabisco, you look at all of these strikes that have gone on. It isn't just an isolated industries. It's wide across industries. And, the industry that's the least unionized, they seem to be the ones striking the most. And that would be your restaurant workers, your service workers, hotel workers, those folks who have been abused for so long. They're just saying, done.
Which is fantastic. This is what they absolutely should have done a while ago. But right now is the best time to do it, because they, these restaurants and bars that have just barely been able to hang on through the pandemic, now that they're coming back, everybody wants to go out. They want, especially, as we're heading into the fall and the weather is getting nice and it's not really hot and humid anymore. Everybody wants to be on a patio. And so I think this is a brilliant time for people to talk to their bosses and be like, let's renegotiate some of this, right? Because the companies are going to start making a heck of a lot more money.
Yeah.
And this is the best thing about folks that are, who are working in this industry right now. They're desperate for servers and for bartenders right now. So this is like, you have the power right now. So by golly, use it.
Yeah. And the reason I bring this up is because, right now, if we had Joe Manchin on board, if you had Kirsten Sinema on board, we could pass, major comprehensive labor law reform that would give people the ability to organize, to join and form unions, and to fight for those better wages, hours, conditions, even in industries like the restaurant industry, where you could have some type of sectorial bargaining to where you would set the standards across the board and not allow the kind of cutthroat competition that goes on there, and they compete on which workers are willing to work for poverty wages. Because back to you, Laura, the last time we raised the minimum wage for the tip workers on the federal level, they raised it up to a whopping $2.13 an hour, which is what's still the federal minimum wage for tipped workers in this country is. That is disgraceful. It's despicable, and it's the reason I'm hoping that all of these people dropping out will come back and want to organize.
Mm-hmm. And I'm here in Las Vegas this week, as you can see, lovely Las Vegas. And Las Vegas is really a testament to the power of worker organizing.
The culinary union.
The restaurant that I ate at yesterday in the casino is unionized. And so I was talking with a culinary union employee the other day, and they still haven't brought everybody back. The culinary workers are not 100% back. But they have protections in place, so they will get first callbacks as more jobs open. Yep. And these are good union jobs. You can make a living as a server in Las Vegas, and you can raise a family there, and that's because of the power of the union here.
That's it right there in a nutshell. Guys, I got to take a quick break right here. Laura Packard, Sarah Burris, Rich Ojeda, stick around. We're going to be right back after this. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1926. That was the day that one of the great labor leaders in U.S. history, Eugene V. Debs, died in Elmhurst, Illinois. In 1894, Debs gained national attention when his American Railway Union launched a boycott in support of the striking workers of the Pullman Palace Car Company. The strike and the boycott were crushed by federal troops and a federal court. Debs served 6 months in jail for his role in the boycott. Later, Debs would again go to jail for standing up for his beliefs. He was convicted for speaking out against U.S. involvement in World War I. He was among the founders of the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World, in 1905. He ran as a socialist for President of the United States 5 times, receiving nearly 1 million votes running his campaign from a prison cell in 1920. In 1891, Debs wrote an article for the Locomotive Fireman's magazine titled The Unity of Labor. His words stand as an eloquent case for worker solidarity. Debs wrote, quote, "If working men were united in sympathetic bonds, if a bricklayer could comprehend the fact that he is dependent on the hod carrier, if the locomotive engineer could grasp the fact that he is dependent on the locomotive fireman, the interdependence of labor would at once constitute a bond of union, a chain whose link, forged and fashioned to hold working men in harmonious alliance, would girt them with a defense in every time of trouble and resist invasion, though assailed by all the plutocrats that ever cursed the earth." Debs spent his life trying to bring about this harmonious alliance of working people and standing up for the causes of peace and justice. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I got to tell you, the last several months have been peaceful, especially on social media since the former guy got banned with all of his insanity. But today, it turns out that the Trump Media and Technology Group, they are now coming out with a new social media platform just so the former guy can have a platform. Evidently, the new social media network will be titled Truth Social. There isn't a joke there other than the fact that the whole thing's a damn joke. I mean, there's no punchline other than Trump has started something called Truth Social. Wow. Here to share some thoughts on the new platform, our all-star panel of Rich Ojeda from No Dems Left Behind, Laura Packard from Healthcare Voter, and of course Sarah Burris from RawStory. Guys, what do you think? We've got this new social media platform. Everyone rushing to get their handle in the new platform. Let's start with you, Laura.
Well, it's clear from the blatant copying that Trump is desperate to be back on Twitter, where he was thrown off after January 6th. And I find it ironic that he blocked me on Twitter a few years ago, but he is gone and I'm still there. So that is clearly eating away at Trump every day, which is why he's come up with this clone. But also he's just trying to monetize his own things. So this seems like some kind of a scam.
And he feels like he's got to have something he can dominate. But we're on Twitter. You tweet, Facebook. You post some stuff. What will we be doing on Truth Social, Sarah?
You post a truth. So instead of a tweet, it is a truth, and then you can retruth that. I think one of the most important things that people need to know about this site is that it is just in beta testing right now. So if you go on to Truth Social and get the account of, say, Devin Nunes or Matt Gaetz or any other Republican elected official, that is totally fine for you to do. Already somebody who is not Mike Pence, a guy who works, I think, for the Daily Dot, got at Mike Pence. A guy who works for the Washington Post got at Donald Trump. So the president, who's his own social media site, he has to be at Donald J. Trump. And then within, I think it was maybe 2 hours of Donald Trump Jr. announcing it on Fox News, the website was hacked. Somebody took over Donald J. Trump's account and posted a hog with some sort of tumor coming out of its behind. Very unclear. And so presumably they have fixed some of the security issues. But I think the plan is that for this to, what Jason Miller, one of Trump's old aides, said, is that the goal for his social media site, Getter, or whatever it's called, I'm not really, but it's spelled Getter. Getter and Truth are apparently trying to steal the market share from Facebook and Twitter. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure a lot of people are going to leave Facebook and Twitter just, to get on Getter.
We're going to get her truth. Instead of get her done, we're get her truth.
I guess.
Wow. And do you have your social media handle there? Does anyone have a truth account now?
I didn't, because I'm scared to. Like, they're combing your data. And so if you're going to do it, I will tell everybody, make sure you've got a VPN on. Use an email account that you don't use with anybody else. And be very conscious of how much information and data you're putting in there, because it's gonna get stolen. It's gonna get sold.
Yeah, I don't think America can handle the truth.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, first off, Donald Trump and the word truth should never be used in the same sentence. I would not put it past Donald Trump to sell people's information, because that's what he does. This is going to become another Parler 2.0. All these jackaloons out there are going to rush to that because they think that they're going to be able to help their orange Lord and Savior Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, it's going to become a big joke. It's going to be a failure, because everything Donald Trump does, that's the one thing about it, it's going to fail, and that's where we're going.
Yeah. No.
So it's going to wind up like Parler. It's going to be full of white supremacists and hate and porn.
Yeah.
But there is one rule in the terms of services: is you cannot use excessive capital letters. I swear to you that it says that in the terms of service. You can post pornography. You can post things that are absolutely untrue. You cannot attack Donald Trump, the website, or post in all caps.
I guess you got to have priorities, right?
Yeah.
Gonna be. I now got to race over and get a truth account, because I had a Parler account because I want to see what crazy people are posting. I now want to see what the truth is. I want to see just how badly we've perverted the truth. I guess alternate truth. That would have been a better name, I think.
Well, I think some of it's going to be really exciting. Like she said, somebody has already basically took the Donald J. Trump and the Donald Trump. So I can see a lot of very, very skilled hackers going in there and just making their life a living hell.
And good.
And I'm cool with that.
It's what we need. It's absolutely what we need. But again, how do you start a platform and allow your name in any form to be taken by anyone else? I mean, like, if you're just critically thinking at the executive skills of the former guy, do you not go, any iteration of my name should be off limits? Shouldn't that be the first thing you do?
And you would think this is something that the investors who Trump is inevitably going to go after should probably think about as they are looking at this social networking site. If the guy who runs it can't even get his account together, then really, do you want to put some money into that?
Well, I'm sure he's going to raise money off of the stupid. I'm sure that's coming, because this week we saw the passing of Colin Powell, partially because of COVID, partially because of a disease that he had. But the former guy, being ever presidential, put out a fundraising request with the statement, "Wonderful to see Colin Powell, who made big mistakes in Iraq and famously so-called weapons of mass destruction, be treated in death so beautifully by the fake news media. Hope that happens to me someday." He was a classic rhino, even that always being the first to attack other Republicans. He made plenty of mistakes, but anyway, may he rest in peace. Oh, by the way, donate to my PAC. Which you go, hold on, the guy's dead. You're going to try and raise money off of a dead guy that you just trashed? Wow. Rich, thoughts?
Well, first off, what he said basically showed that Donald Trump doesn't have the capability to be a good human being. He doesn't. There's nothing that he can't be it. And everybody out there, to me, there's so many things that he has done that should make people say, I'm out. I'm out. This is just another one of those opportunities where people out there that are following Donald Trump, that know that he's absolutely not the right person, but you committed to him. This is another opportunity for you. We're giving you another out to basically say that you're done. Colin Powell served for 34 years in the military, started at the bottom as a brand new not bottom, but second lieutenant, made his way to 4-star general. He was born in a time when he had to drink from a different water fountain and ride in the back of the bus, and he climbed all the way to the highest position that you can hold in the United States military. He was a brilliant staff officer. It's amazing he never ran for president, and I believe that if he would have had a really good shot at actually winning it. He was loved by many, millions of people, and just to see this come from Donald Trump, it bothered me, but then again, what do you expect?
Yep.
You can expect that kind of garbage with Donald Trump. And oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw recently where they also sent messages out to all the Trump supporters that basically threatened them that if they didn't donate within 17 minutes, they were going to be looked at as a traitor, to the Donald Trump. And it was a really messed up message that went out to all of the Trump fans. But even Donald Trump does that. He uses that tactic. When are these people going to wake up?
Sadly, they don't. But very presidential. But great. Hey, we've got a guy who knows no depth. So there's no bottom to that barrel. Starting his own social media in a time when social media, I'm hoping people are waking up, especially looking at Facebook's problems. And I guess there's a possibility that we could be changing Facebook's name. Maybe, Laura, your thoughts on what could that name look like?
Well, I guess truth is off the market, so it's not going to be that. Just want to mention one thing about Colin Powell. He died of COVID, but he was also battling a form of blood cancer, and that's why he was immunosuppressed. And even though he was vaccinated, it wasn't enough. And this is just one more reason why we have to make sure that everyone is vaccinated, because we need to protect people like Colin Powell and like all of the millions of Americans that are immunocompromised, that if they get this thing, it will kill them. And so vaccinations are more important than ever.
No, I'm right there with you. It's something we definitely need. But on the Facebook front, because a lot of the misinformation, a lot of the disinformation has come from places like Facebook, some of these crazy social media sites. Thoughts?
I feel like if you're going to change the company name because it's so toxic, maybe you should just fix your company. Maybe I'm crazy. And it just seems like the better idea, because it doesn't matter if you change it from Facebook to Book Your Face or whatever. In another couple of years, it's going to be another toxic brand, and you're going to have to keep changing it over and over and over again until finally you're just like, oh, gee, maybe there's something wrong with us.
Well, changing the name doesn't fix anything. It's still a toxic organization. They got to go in there and they got to fix what makes them toxic. And Mark Zuckerberg has to be willing to realize, that he's part of that problem. So, yeah.
Right. They changed the name of Blackwater, but that didn't make it any less blackwatery.
There you go. Perfect example. Perfect example. Last thing I want to get to. This week we saw this Oleg Deripaska's 2 properties raided here in the U.S., one in Washington, one in New York. Everyone knows Oleg Deripaska, one of Putin's right-hand folks, a Russian oligarch, someone that, in bed with with Paul Manafort and a lot of the stuff that went on there. Why now? Let's start with you, Sarah, as the reporter of the group. Why now? Why this? Why now?
That is a very, very good question. Why now? Because when the Treasury Department ushered in sanctions for Russians and specifically for Oleg Deripaska, why isn't that why weren't his assets seized, or at the very least put on hold when all of that happened? Why isn't this guy basically buying up properties in New York and Washington and still functioning in the United States whenever the country basically said, oh, gee, there's some issues going on here with Russia. So that's a very good question. Why now? I think the answer for part of it is we actually have somebody in the Justice Department who cares about the law and enforcing it for people that aren't Donald Trump's BFFs or supporters. So I think that's part of it, but I'd like to see a little bit more into the question for why this took as long as it did.
No, I mean, that's the thing that got me. I'm like, why now all of a sudden? Rich, obviously you're a military guy, strategy, something you understand. Strategically, I can't imagine they found anything in those properties. At least I got to assume that, the Russian oligarch is smart enough not to bring things that into the U.S. that can be found in these houses. But could this just be one of those message things that go, hey, we're paying attention, we're watching, and we can screw with you here whenever we want to?
Well, I think that's probably what it is. But at the end of the day, too, the guy's connected to Paul Manafort. So, we have no idea. Maybe on Paul Manafort's side, there's some information that they've got that showed that this guy has, been involved in other things, to include, the Trump presidency. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we need to have investigations in these folks, because they've done some serious damage. They've done a lot of damage to this country. And if we don't stop this, if we don't find out where the issues are and literally crush it, then it's going to happen again. It's kind of like, if you don't punish a failed coup, you can basically guarantee you're going to have another one.
Right.
If we don't stand up and do something with this Russian money and with these, these people that have come here that have absolutely participated in our elections, then we can expect it to get worse down the road, and we can't do that.
No, I'm right there with you. It's all about the money.
Lost it. Yeah, we almost lost it.
Let me throw this out to the whole group, though, because we lived through the era of Robert Mueller's coming. The Mueller investigation is going to take down the former guy. It was all about the Mueller for a very long time, and what we got was kind of a nice 400 and some page report that was to go here, do something. Is this part of that doing something? Could this be part of maybe someone acting on what came out of the Mueller report?
I hope so.
Well,
I really do.
I wonder how much of this is also linked to the Panama Papers. I haven't looked through to see if Oleg Deripaska's name is in it, but this is a lot of what he's doing is money laundering, and these are financial related crimes, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that was a little bit of a tip off. But the thing about the Mueller investigation is really there's the people at the top still haven't had some heads roll on that stuff, and
Well, we had members of the Senate, absolutely, the two from Georgia, Perdue and Laffer, that absolutely participated in insider trading, and it looks like they're going to get a freebie.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a problem. We're starting to realize that I guess we do have people in this country that are above the law.
Yep, I'm right there with you guys. I appreciate the time. Great panel as always. I look forward to having you all back next time around. Thanks so much.
Airborne.
Our all-star panel of Rich Ojeda, No Dems Left Behind, Sarah Burris of RawStory, and healthcare voters, Laura Packard. Again, if you missed any of today's program, you can download the podcast there at thericksmithshow.com. Love to hear your thoughts, your ideas. Are there topics our all-star panel should be picking up? Most certainly reach out, tell us what you think. Give us the information. Love having it. Again, make sure you check out the program, thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.